Florida Senator Rick Scott is speaking out on the U.S. commitment to Venezuela. A suspect is in custody following Friday's attack on 2 mosques in New Zealand that left 50 dead. That's your News in 90, but your Florida news is always on at WUFT.org. That's your News in 90, but your Florida news is always on at WUFT.org. A local church fights hunger in Guatemala by selling a seasonal staple. The Church of God in Gainesville is selling pumpkins to raise money for poverty-stricken areas in the country. The Urban Revitalization Project is accepting more mural submissions right now. They have an eye toward making connections between artists and growing the collection of public art. It sounds like a parking garage, and it looks like one too, on all of the floors except the first. The Urban Revitalization Project has had its hands and brushes on the southwest downtown garage since last March. The URP worked with the City of Gainesville and local artists to fill the space with about 50 murals.
Instead of trying to figure it out on your own, or not having that support system, so we kind of want to bridge those gaps in the community.
Almost every wall on the first floor is full. Now they are looking to take their art to the next level, the second story, that is. They asked each interested artist to send them 4 or 5 of their best pieces and a concept sketch for the mural. Alex Mathia has lived in Gainesville since she was 6, and her mural in the garage was her first. She calls it the Peapod Room.
It's indescribable. I really feel like I'm part of Gainesville now. I've always felt like part of Gainesville, but I definitely feel rooted here, and it's great.
Most of the paint used is recycled or donated for the artists to use.
What I'd like to see this year is a little more financial support from the city and from private business owners as well.
For Art Walk on February 22nd, they will hold an open studio space in the garage. The URP hopes this will attract artists not yet involved with the murals. The CRA wants to improve the sidewalks on Main Street to increase accessibility.
Well, I have worried about that because there's limited parking, and if they start redoing the sidewalk, it's going to be really hard to, be able to come in and leave,
April Goodman owns the Bird's Nest, a store on Main Street. She started the business 2 years ago after her daughter went away to college and left her with what she calls an empty nest. Through the store, she found a new community.
Give me a hug, I'm a hugger.
One she wants to see improve.
We need a wheelchair ramp and it doesn't need two step-ups. Because it is cracked up. It definitely needs to be refinished.
I measured the steps and they were over 7 inches tall. Goodman still worries how construction could affect business.
If you can't get out of the stores, I'll be worried about that also.
CRA Development Director Christina Wright says they're listening to the feedback.
A lot of the business community expressed interest that with jackhammering, it might impede the business, it might hurt the building.
Wright says they're open to a process that adds to the sidewalks rather than starting from scratch. First, they have to collect proposals to go before the City Council. Ultimately, the improvement process will be up to those making the proposals and those voting on them.
And yes, it probably will cost us some business, but in the long run, it'll be better for the town and for our customers.
Goodman says even if she loses business, she'll continue with her store for as long as she can. Rachel Rhodes, WUFT News. The Gainesville area is home to some of the most popular restaurants in Florida. Some of the local restaurants receive multiple violations every time a health inspector stops by to do an evaluation. Alachua County Health Inspector Anthony Dennis says there are different levels of health code violations which can occur during an evaluation.
We've got high-risk violations and non-high-risk violations. Those are more like equipment.
One of the main offenders in the area is the Grand Cafe in downtown Gainesville. On June 13th, they received a reported 21 health code violations, which ultimately closed them down until the following day when they had improved that number to have only 13 violations. Jeffrey Welcome, a cook at the Grand Cafe, says they don't have as many problems as it seems.
The only problem that we had, but people think that this place is poison now, was you found some rat turds in the corner.
The Grand Cafe is not the only major violator in the area. Health inspectors found 22 violations during a check at 43rd Street Deli on June 19th. T&J Seafood had 24 violations on June 13th, which they lowered to 3 on June 14th. And finally, World of Beer had 15 on May 22nd, which they lowered to 3 violations on May 29th. Emily Kaplan, a World of Beer bartender, says most of their violations were due to temperature issues.
Every time we've ever had a health inspector come in, we've had gotten flagged for the temperature of our sink water because it's pretty hard to keep them at the same temperature for like an extended period of time.
Kaplan says although lots of restaurants receive health code violations, they aren't hard to fix most of the time.